Hey everybody! For those of you who aren't familiar with this series, this is where I take a game that I'm currently playing and try to explain to you in 10 minutes or less why it's awesome. For this episode, we're going to be taking a look at Warhammer 40,000 Gladius Relics of War, a game so good they had to give it 3 names. In fairness, there is some logic behind that. The Warhammer 40k prefix in this game's title, of course, refers to the IP or the universe that the game is set in and takes place within. And as you might imagine, Gladius is the particular planet within that universe that acts as the setting for the game. So, in the strictest sense, you can think of Gladius as the real name of the game and Relics of War as the subtitle. Now, those of you looking at the footage of this gameplay might be tempted to dismiss this title as a sort of Me Too copycat knockoff 4X grand strategy game akin to many others such as Endless Space or Civilization Beyond Earth. And in fact, I would say that the latter of those two games is the one that this game probably bears the most striking resemblance to in terms of its aesthetics and structure and general gameplay dynamics. But as someone who spent a considerable amount of time playing Civilization Beyond Earth and its first expansion, Rising Tide, I can say pretty definitively that Gladius Relics of War is definitely a far superior game in just about every measurable, quantifiable sense as far as I'm concerned. It may lack some of the big ticket AAA double glazings that one might expect from other games in the genre, such as elaborate cutscenes or extensive use of voiceover, but I really feel like the details and the nuances and the subtleties of this game are what really set it apart and elevate it from its competition. I'd say for me, the most important aspects to note about Gladius are the fact that the 4 playable factions included with the base game are all very different and unique and strategically compelling in their own right. You can get a very different gameplay experience by choosing one over another, and a very different difficulty curve and gameplay progression as you work through their various tech trees and building and unit configurations. There's also a refreshing simplicity to this game, as it really does embrace the core fundamental warfare aesthetic of the Warhammer universe. There is no real diplomacy here. There are no secondary or tertiary systems and subsystems such as religion or espionage or culture to consider. And what that results in is a game that's very focused on military conquest, technological advancement, and tactical superiority, which tends to make Gladius an almost ideal candidate for a My First 4X or My First Grand Strategy game, while still being mechanically deep enough and intellectually satisfying enough to appeal to seasoned veterans of the genre. I've had the opportunity to play through the introductory tutorial campaign with the Space Marine faction, a good chunk of a single-player campaign as the Orcs, and various multiplayer scenarios with a variety of combinations of AI and human players. And another thing that I would absolutely have to praise this game for is the generally solid and technically sound manner of its performance throughout all those experiences. In the 10 plus hours that I've spent with the game thus far, I've seen very little in the way of any sort of technical problems or glitches, and on the whole I would say that Gladius is a very sound, fun, compelling, and interesting gameplay experience. As someone who's been admittedly a bit burnt out on this style of gameplay in recent years, I found this to be a very refreshing and welcome experience, and I would definitely highly recommend it to anybody who finds turn-based grand strategy gameplay at all compelling. It's also worth noting that this game has some pretty robust configuration options for tweaking difficulty and setting up teams and refining granular aspects of the overall gameplay. Having said all that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. Hopefully you folks have enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. If you'd like to see more videos from me in the future, be sure to hit subscribe, and I will see you next time.